Hey there everybody, it's me, Pluribus Unum, and I'm finally here. I'm here to finally answer all of the questions that were asked of me of this Q&A. And due to the fact that still not a lot of people ask me questions, I'm giving you a little bit of bonus. If you asked more questions, you actually get them all answered. What a surprise! Perhaps one day I'll have too many questions asked of me of a Q&A. Or maybe I'll have to severely limit the questions asked of me in a Q&A one day. I don't know. Maybe one day, maybe not. First, we have a question that is asked by multiple people. That's not their username. Multiple people asked me the question. Least left-wing view/belief. I'll be very real. I think that basically every single one of my political beliefs are left-leaning. Though I guess that might depend on your interpretation of left-leaning. And I thought long and hard about this. And I would honestly have to say I think no matter how you view it in regards to what is left-leaning, I think my least left-wing view might be in regards to guns. Because on one end, I have, I guess technically, more pro-gun sentiment than the, typical American liberal. While I'm still very much in favor of gun control, I think that handguns and shotguns / rifles are ones that you can probably just not regulate as much as higher grade weapons. I don't really see any particular reason why those two guns in particular would be like taboos. No, you can't get these. My viewpoint on guns is basically a lot like drugs, where it's the higher it is, the more hurdles you have to go through, which conflicts with the left-wing position, because Karl Marx believed that no weapons should be infringed upon because he viewed that the workers needed to rise up against the capitalist bourgeois. And I don't have that view either. Though to be fair, I think I still come at it from a left-wing position. And I know that that's probably not what people were looking for. People were trying to find out if I had a secret conservative belief, and no, I don't have any. The first question comes from Kevin Kapak. For the 2024 United States presidential election, do you think the Legalize Marijuana Now party will have a nominee and running mate since the primary winner dropped out? In the time that happened since he asked this question and since this video got released, the Legal Marijuana Now party announced that they were going to be nominating Dennis Schuler, the second place finisher, who is also a chair of the party, to be the nominee, with Rudy Reyes being the person that he chooses to be the vice presidential nominee. So, your question already got answered. Theodore, who is your favorite president in American history? I've made a couple of videos where I've ranked US presidents. Maybe I should make a fully edited main series video after I do a lot more research into these guys, but probably won't. But the short answer is obviously, as the name of my podcast series suggests, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The New Deal policies were basically the closest thing that a United States administration has ever gotten to socialism. I guess under a very abstract sense, you could say that Lincoln was the closest thing to a socialist. But for someone who is still a dirty capitalist, I would say FDR is pretty fine, all things considered. BC to MS has two questions. They asked, in your opinion, what's the worst left-wing party internationally? Now that is very, very interesting because it really depends on your interpretation of what is a left-wing party. There are many parties around the world that are considered left-wing that I personally don't view as left-wing, and yet they still are considered left-wing. So do those count? Or do I have to go by literal how I view left-wing politics? That could be an interesting video in and of itself. Maybe let me know if that's something that you think you're interested in. The long and short of it would probably just has to be very abstract in concept. One that is very anti-social progress or one that is very autocratic and authoritarian, both of which I view as antithetical to left-wing politics. Some examples would be, I guess, quote-unquote, George Galloway's party in UK, the new, Die Linke subsection that got created in Germany, the Sandinistas in Nicaragua, or something like the CCP in China. But yeah, ones that are really fake lefties, I guess. Their second question is, what's the worst left-wing party domestically? Well, that's going to be a tough one. Very similar sentiment in that regard. Socially reactionary or extremely authoritarian. But I can actually give you a specific answer. Two, in fact. Because I think I can go and just give it to a two-way tie between the Party of Socialist Liberation and the Socialist Equality Party. The Party of Socialism Liberation very much known for being very, very, like, cringy, tanky type party, and the Socialist Equality Party being that, but also being known for being an actual literal cult. The fact I made a podcast previously where I've discussed in depth a lot of the problems of the Socialist Equality Party. While the PSL also has some very bad, shady things that they've done, like I think they've covered up like a sexual assault that happened in their ranks. But the Socialist Equality Party is so bad that I think I genuinely cannot make a main series party history video about it. Because I am so biased against them that I just cannot be objective. And I know that I've made like a couple of jokes here and there in a couple of the other ones, and I've made some snide remarks and stuff to like express some of my criticisms and stuff with each of the parties. But this one, it just seems like I just can't in good faith do that. So I guess since the fact that I can still technically do one on the PSL and have a clean conscience but not the SCP, I think it just gives you the answer. It's the SCP. Next, we got 5 questions from Abudun Sulaiman. Hope I'm pronouncing that name right. They ask, favorite comic book superhero team? I would have to say just a general, I guess I could say either the Teen Titans or the Avengers, but I would just probably have to go with the Avengers because I know a lot more about them. I've watched the Teen Titans original show, but I've seen and read a lot more stuff about the Avengers than I have about the Teen Titans. Favorite comic book superhero? My favorite is the OG himself, Spider-Man. No ifs, ands, or buts. With 2 very recent close seconds being both Miles Morales and Kamala Khan. With a special sliding scale towards Kamala because I actually read her original comics before seeing her in other media. While Miles, I'm more centrally focused on him through the Spider-Verse films. And I know you didn't ask this, but I just want to give one special shout out to Hank Pym because Hank Pym is a really fascinating character for me. I'd want to do an Avengers show specifically so I can make a storyline about Hank Pym because he's such a fascinating, interesting character to me. And I hate that the MCU shafted him in favor of the other guy. Favorite current member of Congress besides Bernie and AOC? Under this specific question, I'd have to give it to Rashida Tlaib or Cori Bush, but I'll go one step further and just say, ignore all of the squad members. I would then have to give it to my main man himself, Chewy Garcia. He's been a meme on this channel for basically the entirety of its existence because he was one of the few progressive members of Congress that he was a Bernie endorsed guy back in 2018 that nobody really talked about because his race was basically a done deal for him. But yeah, I think he's been genuinely a really good congressman. Not necessarily on the same level as the squad, but he's relatively close. Favorite current U.S. governor? My boy Roy Cooper. Cooper Trooper Gang, rise up. Roy's boys, let's go. Are you still going to complete the Top 100 Best Senators series? Yes, I am. I know that's one series that you've been very heavily focused on, but I've been busy working on this big project, and as we're getting back into the normal schedule, it'll come up. I finally finished writing the most recent one, and it'll come out later this year. Nevada Garbage Trucks asked, do you believe that Joe Biden is the favorite to win after all of this? In the time since they asked that question, Joe Biden has since dropped out and Kamala Harris has jumped in. But I'll still treat the question in both senses. I still believe that Joe Biden would ultimately win in a matchup against Trump, and I believe that Kamala Harris, as of now, seems to have a very good edge against Trump. Anything can happen, but if I had to hedge my bets, I'd go with the Democrats winning in the next election. And maybe I'll make a podcast explaining way more in depth on why I think that, but to sum it up very briefly, COVID and January 6th. Jack Attack asks, Joe Biden just seems like a very tragic figure to me. I believe it's going to come out in 20 years that they were abusing him and Kamala was running the country on her own. What do you think? I think you're absolutely insane. And the true answer that most people do not really want to think about is the fact that it's just really explaining how the US president is not that important of a person in the administration. That was one of the talking points when they were still trying to trudge Biden out for the 2024 election. You're not voting for a man, you're voting for a team. And yeah, a lot of the day-to-day stuff is relegated to the cabinet. I made a video early, the first video I made in 2024 was literally me explaining this topic very much. The president, for lack of a better term, is mostly used as a figurehead to go around the world scene and sign bills. He's the executive. His job isn't to draft legislation, his is to enforce it. And his job isn't to run the day-to-day life for every single thing. That's the job of the cabinet ministers. And the hundreds of thousands of employees underneath them that literally handle everything on the ground level. I mean, were we claiming that George H.W. Bush was secretly running the country when Reagan was dying of Alzheimer's? No. So why is Biden any different? Is it worth it to dump Biden for the DNC? Well, it doesn't matter what you think now. But ultimately, my viewpoint was that while I didn't see anything that said that dumping Biden would hurt the Democrats. Far from it. It seemed like it would give them a net positive. I still ultimately thought that Biden could have probably won purely because of how bad Trump was. But again, it wouldn't hurt and it doesn't matter now. Your favorite Senate candidate, Hill Harper in Michigan. He's the only Senate candidate that I'm even remotely backing at the moment because he's just genuinely a very good candidate. And a very special hot take is that I think if he doesn't become the Democratic nominee, then there's a higher chance that Kamala will lose Michigan. Because Hill Harper is a pro-ceasefire candidate and will be able to convince a lot of people who are pro-ceasefire / anti-voting Democrat to probably come back into the fold, as opposed to basically the exact same ilk of candidate that they have in the past. How will parties like the Prohibition Party, American Solidarity Party, and Constitution Party and the Party of Social Liberation do in 2024 now that they've picked their nominees? I don't think any of these parties are going to be doing any particularly well. Prohibition Party, I think, if I remember correctly, is on the ballot in one state, and American Solidarity Party is not that doesn't have that many state ballot lines either. The Constitution Party candidate is 100% backing Trump, so he's effectively telling his supporters to go vote for Trump instead of him, so he's going to make the Constitution Party fall down the wayside. And the Party of Social Liberation doesn't really do well anyways. None of these candidates are going to be doing any particularly well. Next are some questions from Alex Kawa. How do you stay optimistic in these dark times for the country? Well, simply put, the hope for a brighter tomorrow is what's keeping me going today. I could give you some BS spiel about how, things usually work out in the end, but no, very genuinely, if there wasn't a bright future, then what's the point? How do you go about talking politics with relatives who disagree with you? Or do you just avoid talking about politics? It really depends on the family member, honestly. Some are genuinely open-minded and are interested in hearing different perspectives and will be able to have like a discussion, even if they're not necessarily on my level of understanding of politics, because they do these weird things like go outside and get a job and do all this other stuff. While there are others who very much have the exact opposite perspective and just don't want to listen to any single perspective that remotely contradicts their inane conspiratorial crap. For the latter, there's basically nothing I can do, so I just kind of avoid it. And it's sad, because it's like, it doesn't matter the disagreements. Again, I've talked to people who I've had disagreements with, and I've been perfectly fine, but the problem is, they just, like, the person I'm subtweeting in this rant, they just don't want to hear it. And I'm not talking about like, I believe that the tax policy is this, or I believe the tax policy is this. Discussions will literally be, I believe that a emergency weather alarm led to the Israel-Palestine conflict. And when I simply try to say that makes no sense, they just don't want to hear it. Which stinks because, I mean, if I didn't engage online, I wouldn't talk about this shit with anybody, literally. His next question is, what's an issue that you've done a 180 on since you started your channel? I guess technically my stance that capitalism is good, because back when I started, I was like, I'm a social democrat. Then, well, capitalism kept doing its thing, and, well, I just couldn't really stick by it no more. What's your opinion on nuclear energy? I am very much in the same vein as those hippies that protested against it back in the 70s and 80s. Because very much, you still have one big problem. Yeah, sure, nuclear energy runs completely fine and has no problems. Well, except for when it has its biggest problem ever. Ultimately, I think we're just replacing one very environmentally dangerous thing with another. Granted, the way fossil fuel energy, it screws up the world regardless of if it's doing fine or bad, But with nuclear energy, I can't shake off the fact that if you just do it bad, and I know that in our system that we have, especially under a capitalist society, we're going to cut corners, and it'll lead to a lot of problems. History Tortoise 123 asks, had you seen Battlestar Galactica? No. Arnie Bishop asks, who's the hottest U.S. senator? I mean, there really isn't much options except for, I know her personality's bad, but Kirsten Sinema. There's no other option. Going to the U.S. Senate looking for attractiveness is the equivalent of going on Tinder right next to a nursing home. Who's the least hot sitting U.S. senator? I guess Mitch McConnell. I mean, he just looks ugly. Why do you refuse to acknowledge the superiority of the two-party American political system over the European-style multi-party systems? Because it is not a superior system. It is in fact an objectively worse system. I'm a believer of things called democracy, and I do not believe that a two-party system upholds democracy. When you're inevitably forcing all political thought into two groups, it is leading to a heck of a lot of problems. Why do we have to live in a society where our options are liberal Republican and Nazis? Next couple of questions comes from Hermiel. Do you think Vermont's GOP is truly moderate? Well, I mean, center-right at the very least, but yeah, generally. What do you think of the 2026 World Cup happening in Mexico and plan of the 2030 Cup having opening games in South America? I don't really care about soccer, so... Next question. What do you think of the rumors of a new Mexican right-wing party for the next election? I'm hoping that they can't pull a Morena-style upset, especially considering the guy who's leading the party is basically a borderline QAnon idiot. Do you think that rumors of Xochitl creating a civic society party outside of the PRI, PAN, and PRD with Claudio X is pragmatically a good idea? It's a good idea for the left because the right-wing vote will be heavily split in regards to the system. So yeah, all on board. All the right-wing parties can fight amongst themselves while Morena can get like massive landslides every election. Yes, based. What do you think of the Comes y Te Vas accident between Fidel Castro and Vicente Fox? For those who don't know, the incident was when Vicente Fox, president of Mexico at the time, had Fidel Castro come to him in a meeting. But in that same day, he had actually had George W. Bush prepared to do an event as well. So he had Fidel Castro meet with him, and then he was scheduled to have dinner with him, or lunch, and then he basically told him, you eat and then you leave. It's just kind of expected, I guess, a right-wing president telling a communist leader to leave. But it did show a little bit of, like, one of the main criticisms coming from the Mexican left was that the Mexican right-wing is basically so subservient to America that they'll literally just kick out a world leader that they don't like in order to serve America's interest, which is very much expected. Do you think the Mexican Communist Party will ever become important in a way similar to the Venezuelan Communist Party? You mean, do I ever think that they'll get one member of their chamber? Or that the government of Mexico is going to secretly infiltrate the party and make it a puppet group to prevent them from running candidates? They don't run candidates now. The last guy they tried to run was only able to get on the ballot on the write-in candidates. So generally, I'll have to say no. And the last question for him is, what do you think of Claudia Sheinbaum's cabinet? Now, I don't know much about all the members of the cabinet. I know some of them, and some of them are literally just names that I recognize, like Juan Ramon de la Fuente. I literally only recognize his name. I don't necessarily know where I recognize his name from. I think I've just seen it around certain, things I've seen. I'm not necessarily a fan of Marcelo Ebrard as the Secretary of the Economy, due to the fact that he is probably the furthest right-leaning in Morena, I think, at the time being. Aside from, expats from other right-wing parties that joined the fray. But of the mainstream members of Morena, he's probably the most right-wing and is considered... When he was elected with AMLO in the last election, he was literally touted in American news press as the reason why they should trust AMLO, because he's a market favorite. I do find it funny that Lazaro Cardenas Patel was announced to be the chief of staff for her, basically continuing the ceasefire between Cuauhtemoc Cardenas and AMLO. The one that I seem to be the most genuinely excited about, in my opinion, is Mario Delgado as the Secretary of Public Education. And it could be because I think this could be a good chance for him to rise up the ranks and possibly become president of Mexico. Because I genuinely believe that Mario Delgado is probably the best suited to be the Morena torchbearer in the next election. Snarky McCarthy says, what third parties, if any, would you support if ranked choice voting or any alternative method or proportional representation were enacted nationwide? Now that really depends on a lot of things, because, like, what do you mean by that? Like, is this a thing that has always existed in the United States, or is it something that happened, like, just now? Like, did, like, magically it happen? Because if it were the case, there would be a lot of different things. Like, I mean, if this were a thing that was going on for a while, or maybe even if it just started today, would DSA get its own ballot line? Like, would they try to get their own ballot line? I mean, but let's just simplify it. Let's just say it, like, magically, like, it happens today, and whatever. I guess for de facto reasons, it would have to be the Green Party. I'm critical of the Green Party, but I mean, just based logistic-wise, it would be the Greens. There's no other left-wing party down here in North Carolina. Unless the DSA party gets added, then I'm fresh out of luck. What curriculum should be added to / be standard in schools? I would say, like, if we literally just took the school system as it is now and then just added a class to it, I would 100% say, I've said this before and I'll say it again, I'll maintain this one, there needs to be a freaking tax class. I'm sorry, like, it just has to be a case. There needs to be, like, a class specifically about taxes. But I also believe that there needs to be somewhat of a restructuring of schools in general. Like, I know that we need to kind of, I think what needs to happen is that there needs to be, like, a weaning in to, like, learning about, like, jobs and, like, other things. I know that'd be very hard to do, and I understand that it's very easy to, like, make a lot of these critiques about the education system without actually providing any solutions. So I just really can't expand more on that subject. What would happen in the first year of ranked choice voting being implemented nationwide? The first thing that would happen would probably be some areas would just magically get some random fringe candidates. Like, I guarantee you that there'd be I guarantee you by the end of that first year, there'd be, like, a decent number of libertarians and greens on the ballot, and, like generally, that would happen. I mean, take Alaska and Maine. When they implemented ranked choice voting, they magically decided, oh yeah, we don't like Republicans anymore, and just flipped to support Democrats. I think that would happen in a lot of these areas. Maybe in, like, some deep blue areas, they'd be like, yeah, you know what, the Democrats here freaking stink, and then magically some Greens get elected. Like, I mean, in the first year, it would change the legislature very fast. Should all schools, universities, colleges, etc., have student councils, elected students, and appointed board-certified age range-appropriate psychologists? I would say generally, sure. I mean, I don't see why not. Should there be an amendment requiring there be options for ballot measures at all levels? National, state, city, county, municipal, what have you? I would say that generally, I think it would be a good option to at the very least have it on some level. Again, I do generally believe that democracy is a good thing, but again, there needs to be some level of restraint in how we handle it. I don't know. Like, I'm not really the best qualified to answer this specific question, but I do generally think that ballot measures are a good idea. I think there are some other amendments that I think need to happen before that one, but, you know. What's the best start time for school and non-essential work? I don't necessarily know what non-essential work it means, but those best school start time, just based on the data that I've seen, really seems to be 9. I don't know why. It just seems that is the time period that seems to be the best suited for starting education. Will the Libertarian Party stop being a joke? Nope. Should schools have a dyslexia test? Yes, absolutely. I think schools should have tests for every single type of disability, whether it be learning or, like, anything. I think some schools already do this, but, like, when people enter schools, they need to be a test of some kind that allows people to understand, like, how is the student going to learn, how is the student going to function, and how can we best adapt our curriculum to adhere to what the student needs. Decentralized economic planning or market socialism. Generally, I would have to go with decentralized economic planning because not a fan of markets. Markets will I know that market socialism probably has it figured out, but markets will, when I hear that word market, I just go, not a fan. Should there be more requirements to serve in politics, such as passing an annual cognition test? The easier solution is simple. Much like how your entry into politics has limits, there should be limits about your exit in politics. Like, you have to be a certain age to run for, like, House, Senate, President, whatever. There should be a certain age where they say, you know what? You can't run anymore. A cognition test, well, it's a little touchy subject, but I would agree to that as long as there's also other ones that deal with other issues, such as the idea of releasing your tax returns. That's an idea that could be interesting as well. Having that and the cognition test be like two-edged sword. And the last question of the Q&A comes from Zara J. Day. If you had the power to change one election in American history, what election would it be, and what do you think it would have changed? That is a very broad question, and there are so many things that I think they said like a part in their comment that like it probably is better that it's not a presidential election, but it's like, really? No, I think having it be a presidential election just makes the most objective sense, because those are the races that have the most impact. And they don't really go into specifics about like, oh, what can I change? Like maybe I can go completely fantasy all over the place. If I'm able to go completely fantasy all over the place, Eugene Debs wins 1912 election and we get socialized healthcare. Bernie wins the Democratic nomination and then becomes president in 2016. Boom, 2 terms of a really great socialism president. Nader wins 2000 election and climate change is no more. But I mean, just off the top of my head, like ones that I would be okay with literally just swapping the results. 1968, so Nixon loses. 1980, so Reagan loses. And 2000, so that Bush loses. 2016 is a little bit of a iffy one. Because while yes, Donald Trump led to a lot of bad things, some things that he did led to ultimately good things, like the rise of the left wing in America. But for the sake of it, sure, swap him there too, so that maybe he wouldn't be able to pull a big January 6th problem, because he would have been laughed off the stage immediately. And with that, the Q&A has ended. Thanks for watching this. Be sure to stay tuned for the video that will be coming out soon.